Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a dire financial report card is out for nearly a dozen school districts in San Diego County. And the head of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is stepping down. What does it mean for the San Onofre nuclear power plant? We'll also show you what a San Diego company is doing to find new ways to generate nuclear power. And in our continuing election coverage, we look at the campaign finances of Congressman Brian Bilbray. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. The chairman of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission resigned today. Gregory Jaczko visited the San Onofre nuclear power plant in the North County last month. It's been shut down since January because of problems with its steam generators. Jaczko had met with people concerned about the plant and assured them it wouldn't restart before determining the cause of the problems. KPBS reporter Alison St John has been covering this story. She joins us via Skype. Alison, was it a surprise that Jaczko resigned today?
Well, no, it wasn't, Dwayne, because as it turns out, in fact, he has not been very popular with the other four commissioners on the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And last year, his other four commissioners called for him to be removed. They claimed that he had a very abrasive leadership style and that he was a bully, specifically towards women. So at that point, Barbara Boxer, who was very concerned about these kinds of issues, investigated, and she concluded that these charges were a witch hunt and they were invalid. So that was 6 months ago, but here now he is resigning.
And you talked to one of the people who spoke to him about San Onofre. What was his reaction to Jaczko's resignation?
Well, Damon Moglin of Friends of the Earth was one of the many people who spoke to him. He came, and I was there when he came to San Clemente to talk about the problems. And he was not abrasive then. He was very open, and he spoke to a lot of community members. And I think the community members felt like they had a personal connection with somebody on the NRC who guaranteed that the NRC would not let the plant start up again unless the cause of the problems at the steam generator have been discovered and they really know what is going on. So Damon Moglin is saying that at the local level, people are disappointed, but also at the national level, because Jaczko was known as someone who really took a strong position on safety and stood up. He was often a lone vote on safety issues. He's the one who recommended that the American citizens evacuated 50 miles from Fukushima, for example, and he was trying to get the safety goals of the NRC strengthened. So he's somebody who stood up to the rest of the commission.
So what do you think happens next with San Onofre after this resignation?
Well, with San Onofre, it's an unknown quantity, Dwayne. But in terms of whether there'll be somebody else at the NRC that the local people can really rely on, that remains to be seen. The White House is going to appoint somebody else. The Senate has to confirm them. But in the meantime, I think this resignation does reveal a split and some political controversy over how to regulate safety at nuclear power plants in this country.
KPBS reporter Alison St John. San Diego Unified is among a record number of school districts tonight reporting serious financial problems. 11 districts in the county are on a state list of schools in qualified financial status. That means they may have problems paying their bills. San Diego Republican Congressman Brian Bilbray is in one of the most competitive House races in the state. Our media partner, Investigative News Source, dug into some of the bills he sponsored and the influence surrounding them so voters can assess his priorities. Reporter Ryan Grohowski joins us from the News Center. So what did you find, Ryan?
We looked at all the bills Representative Bilbray introduced into Congress since 2009, and then we analyzed all the groups or companies that lobbied on those bills and any campaign donations those groups gave to Bilbray. We found that Bilbray has focused on promoting alternative fuels, specifically fuels made from algae. We also found that the companies that are developing algae fuels are some of his most consistent donors.
And who are some of these companies?
San Diego company General Atomics is Bilbray's overall biggest donor. They've given him about $90,000 throughout his career. They're also developing algae fuel, and they registered to lobby on a bill by Representative Bilbray that would give algae fuel producers a tax credit. Sapphire Energy, another local company, also lobbied on that bill, and they gave Bilbray several $1,000s in the past few years.
And Ryan, how much has Bilbray raised for his re-election campaign?
About $1 million so far. General Atomics has given him about $10,000 so far in this election, and their donations are limited by law. So those donations are more to show support of the job he's doing in Congress. Now, we will be keeping an eye on super PACs in this race, as they can raise and spend more than companies.
And remind us where we can find more on this report.
To help people follow the money, we've assembled an easy-to-search app of Bilbray's recent legislation, lobbying activity, and campaign donations. And you could find that at www.inewssource.org.
Ryan Grohowski with our media partner, Investigative News Source. This week in our continuing election coverage, we hear from candidates vying for open San Diego City Council seats. Tonight, we start with the 9th District. We go to Amita Sharma with the candidates over at the roundtable.
A brand new city council district composed of the College area, City Heights, Kensington, Talmadge, and some southeastern neighborhoods are looking for a new leader. The 9th District is the second Latino majority district in San Diego, and it will elect its first city council representative this fall. The candidates are incumbent Marty Emerald and newcomer Mateo Camarillo. They're here with me now to talk about the race. Very briefly, Marty, let's start with you. You are currently the city council representative in the 7th District, and yet you were running for re-election in the 9th District. Explain that.
Absolutely. And by the way, this election will be decided June 5th because there are only 2 candidates, and whoever gets 50% plus 1 will go on to be sworn into office in December. But I'm here because I was redistricted out of my 7th District. I live here in the College area, just a few blocks away, and during the process, the Redistricting Commission chose to divide the 7th District along Interstate 8, which put me south of the 8 and squarely in the new 9th District. Now, this is still the 7th District where we're sitting, and it will be until the beginning of December when the new council member for the 9th District is sworn in. And I'm running because there's a lot of work to do, and I'm excited about all the potential here in the 9th District, the potential for the neighborhoods, for the people who live and work here, and I want to be part of that process of helping to empower these residents and these business owners to create the kind of community that they want to live in and work in.
And Mateo, these residents in the 9th District, the majority of them are Latino, yet only 26% of them are registered to vote. On the other hand, whites make up something like 23% of the residents, and 45% of them are registered to vote. What is it going to take to boost voter registration among Latinos?
Well, there needs to be credibility that your vote counts. A lot of voters are turned off. They don't see evidence that their vote counts in terms of their quality of life. Be they immigrant, be they non-English speakers, be they long-time residents that don't see results because politicians talk a good story, but look at their record. The city is $2 billion in the hole, and there are $2 billion on top of that on deferred maintenance. And yet, you know, we keep re-electing the same people to make the same mistakes. We need a business perspective, somebody who can balance a checkbook that can get us out of this hole.
Marty,
actually,
you know,
I just want to correct a piece of information here, and I know you're on a time limit, but the city actually has a balanced budget. We're talking about the pension system that's in the hole because of past underfunding by past councils and mayors, and that's an issue we're dealing with. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of money out of the general fund.
And
so
we
we're
can
paying
get to
that
that
off.
in a moment, but I want to focus on some issues that are particular to the 9th District. Crime is a problem.
Yeah.
There have been shootings. 2 years ago, a 14-year-old boy was killed in gang violence.
Yes, just 2 months ago.
And I think there was a shooting in 2010 as well.
His cousin, as a matter of fact, at the same apartment complex. We're talking about little Richie Camarillo, and I've been part of regular candlelight vigils for his family and the community. I've met with the residents, too, to see how we can use our voluntary crime-free multi-housing program to make that community safer. We've identified a gang right across the street that's making trouble, and they know they've got to clean up their act. As chair of the Public Safety Committee at the council council for the last 4 years, we've worked very, very hard to build up more resources. For the first time in a number of years now, we're going to have new police academies. We're going to be hiring more officers to be on the streets.
Is there money?
There is money.
New police
Absolutely,
officers?
There's money. I'm not ready to say that our structural budget deficits at the city of San Diego are solved, because we're still dealing with a state that's $16 billion in the red, and the questions about redevelopment and those projects and how that's going to affect us financially. But right now we've got the money. We're going to put it into hiring more police officers, more firefighters, and creating greater resources in the communities to help people stay safe.
Well, let's talk about redevelopment for a moment. This money, redevelopment has gone, but there still is some money left. I know that the residents within the 9th District have a wish list of projects: infrastructure, public transportation, other issues. How is that going to happen? If you are elected to the City Council, how are you going to make sure that those list of needs or of desires are fulfilled?
You're right that there's less money with redevelopment being abolished. But the money under redevelopment wasn't going where it should have gone, because it's based on the greatest need. The communities of the greatest need were not receiving the projects. They were going to other communities that weren't blighted. The question is not all just money, it's how it's administered. And the City Council has a policy that the neediest communities are first in line. But politicians don't obey the law. They don't even obey their own policies.
So Marty, I would like it to be a point-counterpoint.
I'm watching the video there, and many of my staff members were on that tour of walkable streets in the City Heights area, and we believe in complete streets. And we do have money through Transnet, which is a tax that we all pay at the pump to pay for transit projects. We've got priorities coming into place here in the City Heights area,
and we're going to have to close it there,
make the streets far more safe.
We've run out of time.
And we are complying with the law, and we're changing laws so that voters do have the opportunity to create the change they want.
We have to end it here. Marty, thank you.
You bet.
Mateo, thank you.
Thank you.
The fight against childhood obesity took center stage in Chula Vista today. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg says the county rolled out a new fitness campaign.
It's called 5210 every day. Officials say it's a daily prescription for good health. It encourages kids to eat 5 or more servings of fruits and vegetables, limit recreational screen time to 2 hours or less, get at least 1 hour of physical activity, and drink 0 sodas. The director of the initiative, Cheryl Motor, hopes San Diegans will get with the program.
Well, this is our first step, is encouraging the 5210 messaging and having people really understand these healthy behaviors. It's a pretty simple message, and I think as long as we have environments that support health, it will be easier for people to follow these recommendations.
County officials say the Chula Vista kickoff will be followed by other events to promote the campaign throughout the region. Motor admits that it's tough for people to be healthy when they're surrounded by fast food and video games.
At the same time, families need to understand the choices they should be making, and this effort, this campaign that we're launching today is really all about that.
Chula Vista was chosen as a place to launch the campaign because it has the highest childhood obesity rates in the county. Surveys show nearly 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 3 boys are obese. School Superintendent Francisco Escobedo says the 5210 campaign is essential to help kids get healthy.
It's not an issue of whether we should do this or not. It's a moral imperative. We have to do this.
KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg. Students at Hilltop High School got a lesson in the dangers of texting while driving. They tried out a driving simulator today set up by Chula Vista Police.
Teens think they're invincible. They really do. You know, we all did when we were that age. And again, until they've experienced firsthand the potential impact and the potential devastation of doing something like texting while driving, it doesn't always register with them.
AAA calls the summer 100 deadliest days for teenagers on the road. Tony Gwynn is joining a group looking to buy the Padres. He says he's excited by the vision of movie executive Thomas Tull. He's one of 5 potential new owners for the team. Gwynn says he doesn't yet know what role he'd play with the Padres, but he does plan to keep coaching baseball at San Diego State. The San Onofre nuclear power plant provides about 20% of Southern California's energy. Its license comes up for renewal in a decade, and anti-nuclear activists want it denied. Alison St John tells us one San Diego company is looking for better ways to generate nuclear power.
The San Onofre nuclear power station, 50 miles north of San Diego, was built in the 1980s based on technology developed in the 1960s. At the sprawling General Atomics campus in San Diego, Dr. John Parmentola says there are better ways to harness nuclear power.
The paradigm that we're advocating is a completely different paradigm on how you would build reactors.
One of the problems with San Onofre is the amount of spent nuclear fuel that is stored on site. Here at General Atomics, they're looking for ways to use nuclear power to generate energy more safely.
And the startling thing that we uncovered was the amount of energy that still exists in the waste at nuclear reactor sites around the country. Well, if you add up all of that energy that's in all that stuff, it's 40 times the oil reserves of Saudi Arabia. It's equivalent to 9 trillion barrels of oil in energy. That's an enormous amount of energy. And of course, it begs the question, can't we do something with it?
General Atomics' answer to this question is EM squared. It's a new kind of reactor that would run on the spent fuel. Christian Deck is on the project team. He's developing a new kind of material to insulate the fuel rods.
And so inside here is a smaller work area where we actually fabricate the composites.
The ceramic cladding or insulation is important because this reactor is not refueled every 18 months like current nuclear power plants. The same fuel rods would stay in the reactor burning for 30 years without ever being removed.
So we need this material to safely contain the fuel throughout the entire life of the reactor under normal and under potential accident conditions.
Dr. Parmentola believes this new insulation could have prevented the hydrogen explosion that happened at Fukushima. And he says after several cycles of burning nuclear fuel, the EM squared reactor would ultimately leave very little waste.
Spent fuel, the radioactivity can last hundreds of thousands of years. The waste that I'm talking about will last hundreds of years.
One big objection to reactors that burn spent nuclear fuel has been the creation of materials that could be turned into bombs. Parmentola says the EM squared would not produce byproducts that would increase the risk of nuclear proliferation.
These neutron-absorbing products have no proliferation value whatsoever. Nobody would want to use them to make a bomb because you can't make a bomb out of them.
Generating energy using nuclear fusion rather than nuclear fission would have fewer dangers. General Atomics does have one of the few prototypes of a fusion tokamak in the world. But in spite of massive investments, that technology is still in its infancy. Bob Schleicher co-invented EM squared.
To make fusion a reality, there still has to be inventions that have not been invented. I think with EM squared, we have all the inventions now that we need, and we just have to do the engineering and do the proof research that confirms our projection, our calculations.
Murray Jennings is a nuclear engineer who used to work at San Onofre. After Fukushima, he regularly took a Geiger counter to the beach in Oceanside.
And I was just checking background radiation levels, and I didn't find anything.
Jennings took a look at General Atomics' plans for EM squared. He says burning spent fuel would help solve a big safety issue, but he's not convinced it's as safe as General Atomics claims.
This reactor still is subject to meltdowns.
He's worried about the digital controls that GA promises to use on the new design. That's less reliable than analog controls and could be vulnerable to cyber attack.
Anything that solves an old risk with new technology is going to bring in an inherently new risk that we haven't really thought through yet.
When dealing with nuclear power, Jenix says, the technology must be tried and true. The problem with the newly designed steam generators at San Onofre are proving that point. The challenge for General Atomics is to keep generating the billions of dollars it will need to build prototypes to prove that EM² technology is tried and true, cost-effective and safe.
Alison St John reporting. Some anti-nuclear activists are planning protests at the offices of Sempra Energy and Southern California Edison later this week. Today was the deadline to register to vote in the June election. If you already received your sample ballot, you may have noticed it looks a bit different. Joanne Farian recently talked with the county registrar about what's new this year.
Voters will see some big changes on their ballot this election, changes that could dramatically affect the outcome of many races. Here to explain is County Registrar of Voters, Deborah Seiler. Thanks for being here, Deborah.
You're welcome.
I'm talking about changes really to the type of primary. Now, last time you were here, I called it an open primary. I know others have called it a top two primary. I had a lot of viewer mail on this. Explain what kind of primary is it this June?
Well, this June, for those contests that are for U.S. Senate, U.S. Representative, State Assembly, State Senate. Those are, that primary election is a top two open primary. So everybody's correct.
Okay.
All of the voters may vote for all the candidates listed there. And the candidates listed there, and I have some examples here, span all of the different political parties. So you may see, you will see, for example, in your contest for U.S. Senate, you will see candidates who are Republicans, candidates who are Democrats, American Independent, Libertarian, etc., all listed on the same ballot. And any voter can freely choose from among those candidates listed and vote for that candidate.
So this is really what's different compared to the last election, because now you've got examples here. If you're a registered Republican or a registered Democrat, you are going to get the same, virtually the same ballot.
Virtually the same ballot. Now, when you go into the polls, or if you've received a mail ballot, your ballot will be a separate Democratic ballot or Republican ballot or other party ballot if you are registered with that party. And the reason for that is that the very first contest on that ballot is the contest for the presidential primary. And the presidential primary is, for the most part, a closed primary. So only Democrats and nonpartisans get to vote in the Democrat. On the Republican side, only Republicans get to vote in that presidential primary contest. So that's at the very beginning of the ballot, and that's the reason why we do have separate party ballots.
But the rest of it's the same.
That's exactly right.
Okay. Now, if we have this kind of race now, let's use an example. Let's say the 52nd Congressional District. Currently, we have a Republican in office, Brian Bilbray. We've got two Democrats who are sort of close in this race. Could we end up, after this primary, with a Democrat versus a Democrat if there's a runoff?
That is correct. The top two vote getters go forward to the November election, and it doesn't matter which party they are. They just have to be the top two vote getters.
Now, if we're in a nonpartisan race, though, say the race for mayor or even county supervisor, it's not, in terms of a runoff election, it's not necessarily the same, is it?
It varies from office to office, but for the most part, for example, in the mayor's race, if no one gets 50% or more in the June primary election, the top two vote getters will go forward to the November ballot. But it's possible in the mayor's race for someone to win outright in the June primary. The same is true for example, for the city council seats. And the difference there between that primary and the top two primary is that those are nonpartisan contests. There's no party preference or party affiliation listed for those candidates because they are technically nonpartisan offices.
Okay, technically there is the key word. So let's move on to talk about the number of ballots that went out this week. I was so surprised to read your office sent out more than 700,000 mail-in ballots.
That's correct. Increasingly, the voters are finding that this permanent vote-by-mail option is so convenient that they are registering to vote and checking off that little box to say, I want to be a permanent vote-by-mail voter. So that's just about 50% of all of our voters who are signing up to vote that way.
And And when do you start counting these ballots?
Well, the ballots are coming back already. We put them in the mail on Monday. We already have some ballots back in our office, and we hold those ballots until about 10 days before the election, and then we slice the envelope, take them out, and we start scanning them. We don't release any results until after the polls close at 8 o'clock on Election Day.
This was the other thing that surprised me. I thought, you know, especially as a reporter, you realize that even a single news event could sway public opinion. So really, people may be voting now, and lots can happen between now and June 5th.
That is true. New information could come out. That's absolutely true.
And can people still request a mail-in ballot?
Yes, they can. People can still register to vote if they haven't already. The deadline is May 21st. And if they would like to request a mail ballot, and they haven't done so already, there's a form on the back of this sample ballot booklet that goes out to every single voter. They can just use that form, fill it out, and send it to us. Now, we need to receive it by May 29th. That's the deadline for receiving that application.
We're out of time, but we have a lot of information and links on our website, kpbs.org. Deborah Seiler, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Recapping some of tonight's top stories, the head of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is stepping down. Gregory Yasko visited the San Onofre nuclear plant earlier this year and said it would stay offline until equipment problems were solved. One analyst says the resignation is cause for concern about San Onofre's future. And 11 school districts in the county may have trouble paying their bills. San Diego Unified is one of the districts on a state list of school systems in financial trouble. You can find the list of troubled San Diego County school districts on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great night.